Hi everyone. In this module we're going to talk about how to secure your systems and accounts and essentially stay organized with this, because it is vitally important that you use a system to store your passwords and to store access for all the accounts that you hold online. So a lot of the time people will be using a spreadsheet, and they might share that spreadsheet which has usernames and passwords in it with their staff, or they just give their staff one-time access. They just give them the username and they give them the password and they give them access to whatever account they need. But I can't stress enough to you that it will save you an enormous amount of time and also worry when people leave your company, but it saves you time when they arrive in your business, and it saves you worry when they leave your business if you use professional password storage systems. And so what I'll do is I'll give you a bit of a rundown of the tool that I use. So sometimes I'll just start with what's not cool, and that's when people use spreadsheets. So spreadsheets break. People can copy spreadsheets, data can get overwritten, and essentially spreadsheets can be shared around. So spreadsheets are not a good way to store your passwords. And then when you just give people case by case, you give them a password when they need it from your own system, they then tend to store that. I found in my early days that my staff would store those passwords on their computers. They would create their own systems. They'd create their own Word documents or their own spreadsheets, and they didn't necessarily keep their virus protection software up to date on their computer. So when something's written in your computer that says the word password, that's a prize for someone who's going to hack into a computer. So as soon as those passwords are stored outside of your control, then your business is at risk, and it's a major hassle. Like if one of your staff just happened to have their computer compromised and a virus got into it, then you would have to go and change everything in your systems, because that person had been storing that information as they'd been going along. So what I'll do now is I'll just talk to you about the systems that I use. I use a system called PassPack. There are other systems out there. There's another system, an excellent system called 1Password. And the costs are neither here nor there. So you'll look, it's a tendency for people to look at the cost and go, oh, I could probably save money by buying this one or buying that one. But at the end of the day, after you've been using a system for 10 years, it's paid for itself. So just pay for good quality software. So what we'll do is I'll just take you for a bit of a run through of PassPack. So this is our tool that we use. PassPack is kind of, it's a bit of an old style tool. I don't think it's been, it doesn't have like funky styling to it, but we find for our team that it works very, very well. And it has a few core functions that we use all the time. So what I've done is I've set up a couple of just little test entries just so that we can use those. And I'll just show you how we work with this system. So of course you name the user account or the password that you're going to store, and what we do is we use a consistent approach to that. So we always use the property of the name first. So if the business is called Doll's Houses or whatever, we put Doll's Houses, and then we say what sort of access it is. So it might be admin access, or it might be a Twitter account or a Facebook page, something like that. And then what you'll see is when you actually go into that entry, you can see that there is a user ID. You can choose to show that password. You can also suggest new passwords. So the other thing is that what I found in my experience is that when you generate a complex password, staff find it easier to just use your tool than to try to remember that password or to store that password in their own system. So they just come back to your system all the time because of that complexity of what appears to be that password. A great thing about this little tool is this link. It's got a quick link, so when you are out here you can just click on this link here and it'll automatically open up that page. It's got a one-click login, so it can just log you into systems that you need to get access to very quickly. You'll see here as well, you can put the email address that was registered with, and you can also use tags. You'll see down here we've got a tag cloud there. So we use tags to sort of say, well, these particular tools or this particular user type. So for example, we have different roles in our business. We've got admins and we've got web devs, we've got content writers, and we've got store managers. And so all those different roles have access to different systems, and so we use the tags to define those. So you can just click on, for example, copywriter, and up go all the passwords that are relevant for the copywriters. This is, again, a hidden field, notes, but you just show that over here. And you can put in all sorts of extra information in here. There is a character limit, but I've never run into it. We put in things like the date that this password was created, the date this entry was created, or the last password that was used. Sometimes you'll go into a system and change that password and it doesn't remember it. There's a glitch in the system, the internet goes down, something happens. And so what we do is we put the last password into that notes field for just in case. And then we also put in here whether it relates to another password entry. That's my one thing I'd love to change about PassPack, is to somehow create clusters, but I suppose that's what we use the tags for as well. That's sort of like creating clusters and categories there. You can also email these entries securely to team members, but what we tend to do is we tend to add everyone into PassPack and get them to have access from PassPack from there. So the other thing that we can do, I'll just show you that again, sorry, is the options tab allows you to set it as a web favorite or mobile. So when it's set as a web favorite, whenever I log in via my computer, my web favorites always show up. And when I log in via my mobile phone, my mobile favorites show up. You can choose a security level, so you can make a PassPack more secure, an entry more secure. The other things you can do is you can share. So all the team members are listed here, and what you can do is you can just literally tick their name and you can share it with them, and you can choose to allow them to change the entry, or you can choose them to just have read-only access. So for some staff, if a particular tool prompts you to change the password every 60 days, then you can give certain members of the team the ability to put in a new password and to change that password. You can also reassign. So what I get my staff to do is, if they go and create a new account, let's say they're creating a new Pinterest account for one of our stores, then what happens is I have instructions that says go and create that account, but then you must assign this entry to my account, and so I just make sure that that entry is always assigned over. So that's really useful. It means that it doesn't always sit in their bucket, their cluster. It always comes back over to me. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is how to add staff. So obviously with these tools, you can allow people to go and set up their own PassPack accounts. What I've found is it's not a complicated process to do that, of course, but what I've found is that I actually go and set up all their accounts for them. I've got a written process which I'll give to you guys. I'll provide that at the end of this module, and it's a step-by-step process for using two different browsers to just go and set up their account, because then it means you've got more control over their account, and you can cancel their account pretty quickly rather than having to go and deselect them from 40 passwords, 40 entries. You can literally just delete their account or revoke their access. So in here you can see that there's a button here that you can stop sharing with someone, and you can also see how many entries you have shared with them, so you can revoke access for a few of those, because staff leave, and using a PassPack tool helps you get those staff out of your system very quickly, but also helps you bring them on board very quickly. There's just one other little tool. I won't go through it in any detail, but it's something that's worth checking out, is 1Password. You can get a free copy if you're running Windows, and you can buy it from the Mac store for about $50 if you're running a Mac. And that's a good system as well. It operates in a similar way to PassPack, but we just happen to prefer PassPack. Okay, so just to finish up, be that ultimate gatekeeper of all your passwords, because it gives you full control over all your systems. And even though it might not, you start out on a honeymoon. When you're hiring people, there's always a honeymoon period of a few months where you go, oh, this person's great and I love them, they're doing so much for me. I could trust them with anything, we both like the same colours and we both vote for the same, sports team. But there's sometimes the honeymoon sours, and so If you are that ultimate gatekeeper of all your access, it makes it much easier to get that person out of all your tools and all your systems a lot easier. I always create their accounts for them, but using my details. So I always use my email address for their accounts because it just means I've got a little bit more control over what they're doing with those passwords, and I can deny them access pretty quickly. With using a tool like PassPack, you can just give them access to what they need. So when a new person comes on, we'll often just set up a trial password. So we'll set up one-time passwords that they can use sort of for a certain number of times to conduct a trial in our systems, and then that password's revoked. So it allows us to control at a very sort of micro level what they can get access to, and it shuts them out of everything else. It also means that you insist everything is stored and created in your system and not theirs. So once you allow people to start creating their own accounts using their own passwords and using their own email addresses, then that's when you run into trouble. When you insist that it's stored in your system using your administrative emails and your password conventions, then again you just have much more control. And it's hard for me to quantify this, but I'll just tell you it saves time. It just saves so much time when you're onboarding new staff to say, here's the password and I've given you access to it, and you just go and tick a box and say, look, there's your password access, go and sort it out. All right, so that's how to make security of your systems very easy, and I highly recommend that even if you don't use a project management tool, even if you don't use any other systems or set up processes or guidelines, that at the very least you set up a central repository for all your passwords and account access. Okay.